Welcome to Who's in STEM. I'm Ken Ono, your host and the STEM advisor to the Provost and the Marvin Rosenblum Professor of Mathematics at UVA. Our goal is simple. We wish to evoke flights of imagination and wonder by showcasing the cornucopia of all that is STEM at UVA. The marvelous world of UVA science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, you probably heard me emphasize the word world. Speaking of marvelous worlds, today let's talk about Wonderland. That might seem a bit strange, but forever the mathematician, I want to say that I'm a huge fan of Charles Dodgson, the Oxford-trained mathematician better known as Lewis Carroll. That's right, the Lewis Carroll who wrote Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And that's the Wonderland I want to talk about today, or at least an analog of that Wonderland. As a kid, and I guess I maybe still am a kid, I love the Mad Hatter, Cheshire Cat, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I just like saying Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And in real life, well, I actually do have some not-so-fond memories of Wonderland, the stomach-wrenching teacup rides at Disneyland. Now, I want to begin talking about Lewis Carroll and Alice's dream, the dream that's told in this great story, because to mark the beginning of this academic year, I think it's appropriate to view his story, Alice's dream, as something like an allegory for everything that we do at the University of Virginia. Well, what do I mean by that? What do we learn from Alice and her dream? Well, there are 4 points I'd like to make. First of all, Alice teaches us to accept differences in others.
But I don't want to go among mad people.
Oh, you can't help that. Most everyone's mad here.
Right, do you all remember that? Alice teaches us about the importance of self-discovery. Remember that lovely scene where the caterpillar asks,
Who are you?
Well, I hardly know, sir. I've changed so many times since this morning, you see.
I do not see.
What Alice is struggling with, the self-discovery part, isn't that a major piece of every UVA degree? That's one of the most important things that we teach. Now, speaking of discovery, in addition to self-discovery, there really are important discoveries with regard to the world in which we live. I'm talking about research. And my last 2 points about what Alice's dream teaches us points and speaks to research. Right? Alice teaches us to be forward-thinking and not to get stuck in the past. Indeed, isn't that what this whole dream is about? Think about all the crazy things that happens to Alice in her adventurous dream. And finally, perhaps the most important point with regard to research is this. Alice teaches us that taking considered risks can have significant rewards. How does she teach that? Well, it was easy. This is perhaps one of the most famous scenes in the story. Alice took a chance when she followed the white rabbit down the rabbit hole that started it all. So let's review. From Lewis Carroll, Chief Dreammaker, we've learned that accepting differences in others is important. We learned the importance of self-discovery. And with regard to future discoveries and research, we learn to aspire for the future, and we understand that taking considered risks have rewards. So today, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce to all of you a modern-day Lewis Carroll, UVA's new self-described Chief Dreammaker, who's charged with facilitating UVA's research Wonderland. Her charge is to inspire our researchers for a vision for the future, and her charge also is to encourage our researchers and our students to take considered risks in pursuit of rewards, scientific discoveries, new therapies, inventions, gadgets that improve the human condition. And for me as a mathematician, I hope that includes solutions to centuries-old problems in number theory. Lori McMahon is UVA's new Vice President for Research. She arrived on grounds in June, armed with an impressive track record as a neuroscientist, dean, and previous Vice President of Research. Lori, welcome to UVA. And welcome to Who's in STEM.
Hi, Ken. I am so excited to be joining you today. It's truly a privilege for me. Thank you for inviting me to Who's in STEM.
So, Lori, before we talk about your important role as VPR at UVA, I think we have to start talking about your research. You are a distinguished neuroscientist. So, tell us about your research. What are you known for?
Talking about my research is so much fun. I've been running an NIH-funded research lab for almost 25 years, and it's been truly a privilege and an honor. But before I tell you about the work in my laboratory, I first have to tell you about synapses. And I am absolutely obsessed with synapses. These are tiny connections between the neurons in our brain. Amazingly, in adult humans, we have about 100 billion neurons in our brains, and they're connected by 100 trillion or more synaptic connections. These synapses are what form the electrical circuit in the brain. My lab is studying synapses and electrical circuits that underlie learning and memory. We want to understand how these circuits work in healthy conditions and how they're impacted by the aging process and also by disease. We are studying what happens in Alzheimer's disease, in Parkinson's disease, and neuropsychiatric illnesses like depression. And we're also interested in sex differences, and in particular, how loss of ovarian hormones in women during menopause makes the female brain more susceptible to Alzheimer's disease and neuropsychiatric illness like depression. So we are using preclinical models, animal models, that we can deeply record from neurons and understand how these neurons are behaving in control animals and also in disease animals. And we are really trying to understand in Alzheimer's disease the earliest changes in the brain that happen well before learning and memory is apparent. So trying to understand the earliest changes gives us an opportunity to develop interventions, to develop mechanisms and medicines that will interrupt the disease process. It's so exciting for me now to be setting up my research lab in the Department of Neuroscience at UVA, led by Dr. Harry Sontheimer, an internationally known researcher in the field of glial biology and brain tumors. Harry and I overlapped for more than 15 years at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, so it's exciting to be working side by side with him now. Also, it's exciting that I have the privilege of working with Jaydeep Kapoor and Sarah Kusinis, who co-lead the Brain Institute. Jaydeep is a neurologist and a researcher in the field of epilepsy, and I have known him for more than 20 years because my lab also has an interest in epilepsy. So together, Jaydeep and Sarah are leading the Brain Institute that has been doing tremendous work, bringing together the neuroscience community across grounds and inspiring neuroscience research. The Brain Institute held a symposium this past spring that I was fortunate to attend, and it was absolutely outstanding. So I'll be working right beside Harry, Jaydeep, and Sarah, and all of the neuroscience community here in order to help train students and lead the neuroscience research enterprise. I am so honored. I must also give a big shout out to all of my trainees in my laboratory, my PhD students, the undergraduates who've worked in my lab, and the postdoctoral fellows. They have been the true drivers of discovery. I am looking so forward to recruiting new students and postdocs to fill my lab here at UVA.
Wow, that's so exciting. I've been covering the grand challenge that supports the Brain Institute and neuroscience for quite some time. So I too know Jaydeep and Sarah, and maybe remember we first met at the Brain Symposium that you were speaking about. And so as a representative from the Provost's office, I think hiring you is another example of return on investment. Who would have ever thought that through these connections with Jaydeep and Sarah, that not only will this research in neuroscience grow, but the actual infrastructure of the university would benefit as well. That's a real bonus for us. So turning to your role as BPR, you head and will be building out the Office of Research. And for many of our listeners, I think it's worthwhile for us to hear you describe what this office will do.
I really love your comment earlier about Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland. I really see my role as leading UVA's Research Wonderland. It's tremendously exciting for me and an honor to serve in this role. And I must credit JD. He was the one who helped recruit me to UVA. So the Office of the Vice President for Research really has two main roles. The first is to provide research support to all faculty across grounds. And what I mean by that is all faculty doing all kinds of research. Research is how we increase the knowledge capital. It's how we generate new information. So research that's happening in the humanities, research that's happening in math using AI algorithms and developing new algorithms to impact society. It's research in the School of Engineering focused on autonomous vehicles, and in computer science focused on developing new methods to understand the environment. It's also biomaterials. It's in the School of Medicine focused on developing new medicines for the care of patients and delivering that care to improve human health. So research is important no matter the discipline. It is how we impact society. The other role that I play and our office plays is to increase inspiration and innovation, is to develop mechanisms where faculty can get together. Often, it is the conversation in the hallway, on the sidewalk, that leads to a new discovery. So we are working to develop activities for faculty to get together and also students. It's our students and our postdoctoral fellows and research staff that are the true research engine that drives discovery. So providing opportunities for collisions are important. And we want to alert faculty to what's coming down the pike from our federal funding agencies to make sure they are aware of what's happening federally, but also what the interest is across the state. So I really see my role is to make it easy for faculty, students, and fellows to do the great work that is also good and the work that has the biggest societal impact.
Wow, Lori. So to me, it sounds like you are both the CEO of research as well as being the chief Dreammaker for UVA's research universe. Can you give us a glimpse, say, of some of the plans that you have for the future?
Yes, I guess I am the CEO of research, and I am the biggest fan of research. As I mentioned, across disciplines, research is how we grow the knowledge capital that changes lives. And yes, I do consider myself a dream maker. What I mean by that is all faculty, all students, all trainees have dreams about their careers, what they want to learn, what they want to achieve, what discoveries they want to make. And I see it as my job and the job of the entire Office of the Vice President for Research to make those dreams come true by providing the support that they need to carry out the very important and impactful work that they're trying to do. So that's how I view myself as the chief dream maker for students and for faculty. You know, some of the immediate plans that we're going to focus on are supporting the grand challenges. The grand challenges are so inspirational to me and really was important in drawing me to this position. So our grand challenges focusing on democracy and environmental resilience and sustainability, precision medicine and precision health, brain and neuroscience, and digital technology and society. Those are inspirational challenges. There's big world problems in those areas to solve, and I am so excited to enable our research community to work on these big problems. I often think about big problems as blue sky. And in thinking about that, then we can really reach for the stars and tackle those biggest problems. So we're going to get busy working on those areas, but also other areas of high importance across the research community. I'm also focused on helping to recruit the executive director of the Manning Institute for Biotechnology. It's an amazing opportunity for UVA to really advance therapeutics for the treatment of patients who are suffering from disease. This is an opportunity that doesn't exist at most medical centers and universities. So this is unique, and it's an opportunity for us to really excel. The hardworking discoveries that are made at the bench, and then moving those discoveries to the clinic and clinical trials and starting new companies will drive economic growth. And most importantly, these new discoveries will be translated to patient care across populations. Of course, I must also mention the critical role of fundamental research. Research in the natural sciences like chemistry and physics and math and data science. These disciplines are necessary, and I will say again, critical for us to be able to solve the world's biggest problems. And it's also important for us to maintain a culture of curiosity. Being curious leads us to finding solutions that will have the biggest impact on society.
Lori, thank you. This is so exciting, I'm sure for you, but I think I can safely speak for UVA research that it is so exciting for us. Now, you just arrived. Have you even had time to unpack your boxes?
Yes, actually, I have. I was so excited to get started that I quickly moved and got settled. I'm living in Crozet and am loving it. I've received an incredibly warm welcome from every facet of this great institution. The highly talented team in the Office of the Vice President for Research, and from Dr. Fred Epstein, who served as the interim Vice President for Research and is now my friend and colleague and is serving as the Associate VPR. He and I together will be leading the Office of the Vice President for Research. I feel the hum across grounds. It's so exciting. I feel inspired by President Ryan, Provost Backham, the deans, and by you, Ken. It's incredible what you are able to do using math and the development of digital twins to help UVA swimmers perform their best in the Olympics and earn so many medals. I feel humbled by it all, and I am honored and thrilled to be a part of a place that is so magnificent in every way.
Thank you, Lori. The work that I do is also a privilege. I guess I can echo your vision where you highlight the important role of fundamental research, how it's fundamental to engineering, medicine, and all of the STEM fields. And that's actually how I view my work. I never would have thought 10 years ago that work in pure mathematics could lead to Olympic medals. But make no mistake, I still have a day job as a number theorist, and that still gets me up in the morning. So our listeners, of course, know President Ryan's mantra, to be great and good in all that we do. And this mantra is the guiding principle for the university, and it's the guiding principle for the 2030 plan, a plan which has as its primary goal to make UVA the best public university in the nation. So have fun with this question. What's your vision for the research piece of this plan?
I have to say that to be great and good in all we do was so inspiring to me when I was thinking about this position at UVA. And also that UVA should be synonymous with service. That also drew me here. When I learned about the Vice President for Research position and read President Ryan's plan, I knew I needed to be part of this great university. And I love the mission of public institutions. I've spent my career at public institutions, first at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, then at the Medical University of South Carolina. We have tremendous responsibility to educate and to create new knowledge through research. And as I said previously, new knowledge in all disciplines. In the absence of research and discovery, life as we know it gets stalled. We get stuck in the same place as we are now. So I see my role is to make it easy for students and faculty and fellows to do their great work that will lead to new tools, devices, algorithms, medicines that are good and improve lives.
So, Lori, time is running short, and I want to ask you a question that I ask many of the guests on this program. For students of any age interested in pursuing research, what advice do you have to offer?
Oh, I have lots of advice to offer. First, keep your eyes open and be curious. Ask questions. Listen to what others are saying to you and about you. And don't let fear paralyze you. I think often students are fearful of failure. Failure is an important part of research. And if you don't try, you'll never know what you're great at. It's actually pretty funny in some ways that I ended up pursuing a career as a bench scientist. And it's funny because I really didn't enjoy the laboratory part of my biology and chemistry classes. With the exception of the organic chemistry lab, I really loved that, so I suppose I could have been a chemist. But I was planning on going to medical school because I loved physiology and anatomy. But one day I had a very important conversation with my professor, Dr. Douglas Ader, at the Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville campus. After I turned in my exam one day, he asked me what my future plans were, and I mentioned medical school. He shook his head at me and said, "You're too curious to be a physician. You should really think about a research career." He said, "You ask questions every class, you're very curious, and research allows you to express that curiosity." So without that conversation that day, I might be a pediatrician right now, which I'm sure I would love. But I love discovery, the sense of discovery, the impact that it can have on society.
Well, Lori, this has been a wonderful conversation, and thank you for sharing your story about Professor Ader. I think all of us at every age needs help and advice from others. And so for me, it was a Professor Basil Gordon. And Gordon might be a name you recognize for two reasons. One, Gordon of Gordon's Gin, the British distillers. But Basil Gordon grew up in nearby Gordonsville. He was my PhD advisor, and the Gordon family is one of the first families from Virginia. And when I told him I would be moving to the University of Virginia, it brought tears to his eyes that I could be a professor where many members of his family studied and ended up becoming important leaders in the community.
This takes me back to the chief Dreammaker. I think faculty have an important role in mentoring students, and that can be a first-year student on grounds, or that can be a fifth-year PhD student or a postdoctoral fellow. So I think we need to think of ourselves in that way. Your PhD mentor helped your dreams come true. My mentors have played that role in my career too. We have an important role to play to help all of those individuals make their dreams come true.
Last question, fun tidbit. This is your opportunity to share a little bit about yourself outside of science, outside of neuroscience.
Well, people who know me well know that I love to dance. I often get my husband, John, dancing with me in our kitchen or in our living room in the evenings. As a child and all the way through college, I was a ballet dancer and tap and jazz as well. I performed numerous times, including in the Nutcracker with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. That was when I was in high school. That was a highlight of my dancing career. In college, even though I was a biology and chemistry major, I continued to dance, and I danced alongside the dance majors, and I was able to perform in many performances in my college career. So I love to dance. I try to do it every time I get, and when I engage in exercise, it involves dancing.
So thank you, Lori. Again, welcome to UVA. We're excited to have you. You, I'm absolutely confident, will fulfill President Ryan's vision. And in your case, it is to be great and good and research. It's my pleasure to welcome you as UVA's Lewis Carroll, Chief Dreammaker of Research. And, well, UVA research is your wonderland. I'm Ken Ono, STEM Advisor to the Provost, and Marvin Rosenblum, Professor of Mathematics, and you've been listening to Who's in STEM.
Who's in STEM is a production of WTJU 91.1 FM and the Office of the Provost at the University of Virginia. Who's in STEM is produced by Catherine Casaboom, Claire Curzon, Ria Verma, Ben Larson, and Mary Garner-McGee. Our music is composed and performed by Robert Schneider and John Ferguson of Apples in Stereo. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Listen and subscribe to Who's in STEM on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with another conversation about scientific and technological innovation at the university.